Okay, Shane Jones piles the pressure on the Prime Minister to pull New Zealand out of the expensive Paris climate agreement, or at least he says New Zealand First will campaign heavily against Paris during next year's election campaign. It's become clear most countries are paying lip service to the pledge to reduce carbon emissions. Most countries have today failed to meet a crucial Paris deadline. Is it dead in the water? Let's go.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, welcome to the program. I'm Duncan Garner, your Editor-in-Chief. Welcome. Good to have you here. Please subscribe. Really helpful if you do. Let's get to 20,000. I think we're 16,000. So if we get to 20,000 subscribers, I'm not promising 100%. Get real. Is the world walking away from the historic Paris climate agreement that Jacinda Ardern signed us up to? Not quite is the answer, but they're hardly taking it seriously. Just 15 of 194 countries have today met a crucial deadline outlining how they will reduce emissions going forward. Most countries have given Paris the one-fingered salute and said, sorry, you're not the priority today in our country. To reach our target will cost us billions of dollars here in New Zealand in compliance and billions if we fail. Already, our economy is struggling. We are not a big polluter, yet the cost to our struggling nation will be billions and billions of dollars. Do we simply pull out? The Americans have. Shane Jones, he's no fan of Paris. We'll have a chat to him shortly. Let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
Okay, Christopher Luxon is a signed-up member of the Climate Change Believers Club, and he's just signed this government, your government, up to go further than the last government did when it comes to meeting our Paris commitments. Many are shaking their heads at this. Others say it's the right thing to do. But only 15 countries have met today's deadline, which demands countries update the Paris organisers where they're at. A staggering 179 countries have missed the deadline, too busy, and simply do not care enough. It's not a priority. That tells you everything, folks. Global agreements and rules-based agreements, I think, are falling apart in the wake of the Trump election, or re-election to the White House, and his decision to pull out of Paris. Agitators in government, like Winston Peters and Shane Jones, have made noises about leaving Paris, as has ex-David Seymour. So you've got three people in the coalition there that they want out. Why punish ourselves and bankrupt ourselves here in New Zealand when others aren't? Could it be just a giant overreaction? And by signing up to this, we sign our death warrant as a country? Those who play by the international rules and subscribe to them say we must, of course, stay the course. This is internationalism, you see. Shane Jones says, get real. It's economic lunacy waiting to happen, and it's happening on our doorstep. What is the point in being the example here? We should be fast followers and not trendsetters. Great, we're green, but at home we're broke, starving, and out of our jobs due to blindly signing up to Paris, which is really, really costly. And besides, the world order is, I don't know, you tell me, but I think it's melting down. Trade and climate rules are being broken everywhere, and, what was a cosy agreed club in 2016 is now a bunch of hotheads doing what they like. What was collaborative before is now not, and America is throwing its weight around, and the tariffs are being threatened and introduced. 10 years ago, the world was much more together, the rules were clearer, and the world order, I think, is changing. America and Trump has turned the world on its head. What was agreed before suddenly is no longer. International rules and agreements are there now for Trump to pull out of. And the message to the world is they're not worth the paper they're written on. So Paris was taken so seriously 10 years ago. What about now? So should we give Paris the one-fingered salute and save billions? Be an outlier and an agricultural nation that refuses to be pushed around? Shane Jones is out there making videos like this one you're about to see from his office, telling climate activists to back off him. He's no denier, but he's just a pragmatist. Have a look at this.
Kia ora folks, Shane Jones here. Of course I'm not a climate denier, but don't try and guilt trip the party I belong to, or indeed my good self, that because we take a more pragmatic and considered view where economic criteria is given a large degree of prominence, then all of a sudden you're going to write me out of the script as being a climate denier. Absolutely not. And all the shrillness in the world will not stop another Chinese entity creating a coal-fired power station or whatever they're doing in India, and all the taxing of the cows in the Canterbury Plains will not change the weather in Gisborne. We've got to learn to adapt. But adaptation has to mean that the communities and the people and the property owners have the authority to salvage themselves when these adverse weather events strike them. Don't wait for 2, 3, 6 weeks. Some walk short sock, Roman sandal bureaucrat arrives and tells the community, you can't do anything until we've permitted it. Meanwhile, the community is watching their property and their resources disappear as a consequence of a climatic event. That's the New Zealand First pragmatic approach to adaptation in the face of climate volatility. But don't dare think you're going to win this argument by just calling me a climate denier. I'll see you at the ballot box and I'll still be standing, no doubt about that.
So Jones thinks it's time for a serious rethink of Paris. This will give Luxon the heebie-jeebies because as coalition partners they've all agreed to, agree to Paris. But once again, the coalition partners are making all the play. It's Jones, it's Peters and it's Seymour. Where's Luxon on this? What does he really think? Does he have a voice?
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, of course he has a voice, but are we going to hear it? Shane Jones, New Zealand First, he joins us now. Shane, g'day, kia ora, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, greetings, folks. Nice to be back.
What's just that video that we just played in the piece there? You having to go, don't you call me a denier. You're not a climate change denier.
Oh, look, we need a voice. New Zealand First has been that voice, calling for pragmatism and also calling out the carbon religion. The reality is we can only generate responses if we've got economic surplus. The notion that we're going to dash off and buy all these credits from the Congo is fanciful, never going to happen. And the other thing too is that our policy has always been climate adaptation. A lot of the work that money that got spent through the PGF, and indeed the couple of $100 million that went through the budget last year from the fund that I am the steward of, it was for flood resilience. That's climate adaptation. And there's a level of religiosity, a level of ecclesiastical kind of scaremongering going on, and far too many people have been cancelled in this climate change debate, which is all I'm saying. You're not going to cancel me. I'm going to have a different view.
Yeah.
And the view is that coal is going to grow in importance and gas because it is evident to me that the regulatory framework, a la the Contact Energy wind farm down on the South Island, was being cancelled by some unelected grandees under the EPA. So that shows we need coal and gas to keep the lights on.
Yeah, that decision to cancel, I mean, that's got to be frustrating because we want these projects, right?
Hey, those were legitimate investments. The person who chairs the panel is some unknown, unaccountable, unelected lawyer. Look, I don't know. I don't know these ideological pygmies, but I do know that that particular person also chaired the panel which aborted the Ngaitahu fish farm off the coast of Stewart Island. And apparently it's on the basis of amenity value, which basically is a subjective judgment about how do you rank values. Well, I rank values very highly, starting with jobs, industry, economic resilience. And just because you go tramping, you don't own the view.
Yeah. What do you think we should do with Paris then? Because you've seen America pull out. Other countries are looking very suspect in terms of their commitment to it. It's all very well signing up to Paris, but what if we're broke at home and starving with no jobs, but we're a member of the Paris Agreement? I mean, it doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of flexibility there. There's no way that New Zealand First is ever going to agree to $30 billion being spent, quite apart from one cracker, overseas to buy carbon credits from the Congo. That's just never going to happen. So what we've got to do is trust in science and technology. What we've got to do is learn to adapt with changing volatile weather. But we've got to keep the economy pumping, mate. Unless we have a pumping economy, which means an affordable energy system, a secure electricity system, you won't have the money. Show me a green country that's poor.
Yeah. Tell me this. How do you get Luxon across the line? Because your government has stayed the course and is still in Paris. Although I think Seymour is questionable, and I think he's going to support what you guys are saying. When does Chris Luxon say, right, here's my backbone, here's my spine, here's my nuts, I'm pulling out?
Well, obviously, we live by our coalition agreement, and Winston, being the lawyer that he is, places a great deal of accent on the words in the coalition agreement. But there's no shortage of scope as to how we observe those obligations whilst at the same time do things that benefit Kiwis. Mate, if I got 1,000 people together in a hall And by the way, there will be 1,000 people or nigh on Sunday when they come to listen to Winston's State of the Nation speech in Christchurch. But I got 1,000 people in the hall, and I said to them, folks, we're going to have to dig coal or import coal and use gas to keep the lights on, so you can afford to live in Kaitaia, you can afford to maintain your industries in Hamilton. I put my ability to win that crowd over against any other New Zealander, and I'll win that debate, mate. And that debate is going to be front and centre at the next ballot box.
Jacinda Ardern signed us up to Paris in all their glory, that last government, and you've seen that with the school lunches. That was another Jacinda thing as well. You don't necessarily have to follow blindly Jacinda Ardern's policies. You're a new government.
Well, Jacinda, as you know, is on a book tour throughout America, and quite extraordinary that she has to do that and too afraid to come back to her own country. But look, that's another matter. She can paddle that waka. The actual responses that we've got to the challenge of climate change, already our energy is 85% clean green. And if the last 5, 10 or 15% still burns coal or burns diesel or burns gas, keeps the lights on, I don't lose one moment of sleep over that. And whilst it's important that we continue to boost supply, and if it makes sense for more geothermal, and I've got a meeting tomorrow about the $60 million we're spending, and I've got the iwi coming along to hear what we've got to say. But I will be saying to the iwi, there'll be no hijack, there'll be no ransom politics. If you want to join up and act collaboratively with the Crown and the industry, come aboard the waka. But this notion, we're going to take you to the Waitangi Tribunal and stop you from doing anything, that's going to be one short, memorable meeting tomorrow.
Yeah. The truth is with Paris, we can't afford, with the current state that the government and books are in, with $12 billion in the hole as it is, we can't afford to spend $30 billion on climate credits. We simply don't have the money. Where does it come from? What do you do?
Well, a third of the country is DOC estate.
Yeah. What
we should be doing, and of course, a fair bit of that land is called stewardship land, which is not DOC land. It's just a whole lot of excess land that was thrown at the back of the cupboard in 1986, 87, 88, in the days of Rogernomics. What we should be doing is making all that land available to the private sector. And the private sector, if it's capable of killing all the rats and stoats and other critters that plague the DOC estate, a couple, one or three of them are two-legged, then what we should be doing is enabling the private sector to work with the Crown or iwi, and where those trees sequester carbon, absorb carbon, and if their ability to absorb more carbon out of the atmosphere grows as a consequence of people clearing all the rats and clearing all the pests, what's wrong with that? Money for DOC, a contribution to the rest of the world, and it'll stop the farmers fighting with me that we've taken too much farmland and put it into pine trees. Oh, well, let's start looking after the trees that we've got and create incentives for those trees to absorb more carbon. I mean, it's a practical, common sense thing to do. And that's money that stays in our own economy, not going to the Congo, which will never happen anyway.
It won't happen. We're burning coal as it is. For New Zealand to keep the lights on last winter and as we are now, Huntly's burning coal, isn't it? I mean, that's the truth, isn't it?
Mate, there's a pile of coal in Huntly almost as high as Mount Eden.
Yeah.
And yet Huntly is sitting on a coal mine. But we're not allowed to dig that coal up, because there is a fear that it'll worsen our carbon profile. So what we do is we import coal from from Indonesia. And that's probably an economically sensible thing to do, because it's reliable, relatively inexpensive. And who is going to open up a coal mine in New Zealand if you can't get a 10 or 15-year contract? And then the fear is that Megan Woods and these other ideologically barren critters come and reverse that decision, so people won't take a risk.
on those infrastructure projects, on those big decisions, we need Parliament to agree. Otherwise, we're going to go back and forward, and all we're going to get is hot air and no progress. We won't get projects, Shane, if we don't get some sort of cross-party agreement.
It's important that what projects we get, we guarantee that they cannot be
overturned.
Overturned. Yeah, we cannot be overturned by these munchkins who seek to replace our government.
But what's the point of importing coal? Because there are carbon emissions involved in importing coal. You've got to get the stuff here. And the quality of the Indonesian coal is nothing like, apparently, our coking grade coal here. I just find it, we've got coal in the ground, yet we import it. I find the whole thing pointless.
Well, mate, if we hadn't have had the fast track, the coal industry on the West Coast would have closed down. There's no way that DOC, there's no way that these unappointed sort of witless, toothless fairies that make all these decisions would have allowed coal to continue. Coal is here to stay. Coal before dole. Now, if you don't like my answer, then change the law to make it easier for more hydro, more geothermal, and back me on the fast track. But the very people who hate coal didn't back me on fast track.
Yeah.
Mate, as you know, the position of New Zealand First was for the politicians to make the decisions. And then they said, oh, well, that represented the loss of transparency. Well, how transparent is it for these Lilliputians who have been turning down all these projects down in the South Island? Who knows who they are?
Well, it's faceless. Where's the democracy in that? Oh, I'd much rather come from so we know who you are, we can see you, and we can interview you and ask you questions. These guys are not accountable.
No, mate, they've all raced back to their mahogany panelled offices in the South Island, hiding away, unresponsive, unwilling to front up to the media. And don't worry, I'll have more to say about them next time I'm in Parliament.
How hard is it to open a coal mine in New Zealand today? If I wanted to open a coal mine, how hard?
The only way you can get a coal mine going in New Zealand is through my fast-track legislation.
And how quickly can you
do that?
There's
no other way to do it. Largely because the Greenies and the left wing, they regard coal as kryptonite. I regard it as a transitional fuel. But even the whole concept of the transition, I mean, transition to what, mate?
Where is it? Where's the transition?
Exactly. I mean, where are you going? You're going to some unimaginably dark, dangerous place where your electricity system doesn't work. Well, go to South Africa. Spend 10 grand and you'll find out what that place is like in the absence of reliable electricity.
How do the Greens get to Waitangi this year? Do they fly an electric plane?
There you go. They certainly didn't come up on a bloody 10-speed bike.
12 MPs, so they flew. Come on. Okay, so Paris, you'd like New Zealand. You think naturally there's going to be a review of our commitment to this?
Oh, absolutely. A large part of what we're going to campaign on next year is all about this. I mean, look, it was John Key's government who signed us up to the Kyoto Protocols, and then Jacinda carried it on. And it's a classic case where rational, pragmatic, economic decision-making has been overwhelmed and eclipsed by the carbon religion. And the carbon religion has as its handmaidens, or its godmothers, Megan Woods, the Green people, and the rest of us who are standing outside the carbon religious temple saying your temple is built on shifting sand. It's not on solid foundations, and it's going to collapse.
There was a consensus 5-10 years ago. The world was going this way, but the consensus appears no longer there. And Trump has a lot to do with this too, right?
Well, all Donald Trump has done, he's delivered on many of the things that Winston campaigned on. A fast-track legislation. Trump is promising to deliver fast-track. Pragmatism and climate change. Winston campaigned on that. An ongoing, flourishing mining sector. A reversal of the oil and gas ban. The worst energy decision ever made in the history of New Zealand, which sadly I acquiesced with.
You will come across different companies and all sorts of investors that want to be here, but they're so nervous about New Zealand because that decision had more than just an impact on the current people that were in New Zealand. It had a massive impact downstream on people who may have come to New Zealand in the future They no longer know that we're a sure bet, do they?
Oh, well, they told me that in Toronto. They told me that in Singapore. They've said, okay, we've heard what you've had to say. I mean, there were 30,000 people at that conference. I gave a host of interviews up there. I spoke on a bunch of panels, and there was a lot of interest in the shift in the political tide in New Zealand, the shift in our narrative. They had followed a number of the speeches that the Prime Minister had given, and certainly the mining people were across all of my speeches to do with Freddie the Frog. But they all said, New Zealand, really, are you really up for this sort of thing, this narrative that you're trotting out here? I mean, what's going to happen, mate, one day when you're not around? And that is the underlying problem we're still grappling with, because the effect of Jacinda's oil and gas ban was to ban international investment. That was the impact. Yeah. I doubt if she fully thought it through, but when you have all this cuddly, fluffy, non-accountable language, it's my nuclear moment, without any sense of the economic implications of that, now we're living with the consequences. And sadly, the Labour Party seems to have even gone to a worse state. And given they can only they can only govern with the Green Party, who themselves are cultists on climate change, and with the Māori Party, well, they themselves are like they're like a virus that will slowly infect and cause the unraveling of any government that they're a part of, which is why Winston and I are in the business of driving them out of existence.
Yeah, no, I see what you're doing there. I reckon the what sort of figure would you put on it? The damage effect of that Jacinda Ardern, which were a decision which effectively was just
billions,
a brain fart.
Billions, mate, billions.
Yeah.
Billions. In the area of the oil and gas industry, I mean, just to start up, there's a gas field with great potential off the coast of Raglan. I think it's called Karewa, some Māori name like that anyway. I've no doubt that'll be well over $500 million, approaching $1 billion to fully develop that. Would have been billions that we could have made out of the southern basin off the coastal Oamaru. All of that has been frozen. All of that was sent to the knackers yard. So the effect of Jacinda's nuclear moment was billions and billions of dollars. It's made the country poorer, no doubt about it.
We all, and just finally, Shane, I appreciate you've been a busy man and you come on. We look across to Australia. We often compare ourselves to Australia, and they have just ripped ahead. They have a brilliant savings scheme. They have options and choices, and they have $4.6 trillion on investment and all sorts of things. And they mine. And they have iron ore. They do all sorts of things that we just won't go near. They're wealthy because in many ways they dig. We're poor because we've refused to.
Yeah. We're sitting back under the panga tree watching Indonesian coal keep our lights on and deliver sort of carbon religious-based lectures on how we're pure, clean and green. It's this level of juvenile naivety that sadly has infested our politics, and it falls to parties like New Zealand First to continually rail against it. In fairness to David Seymour, he's been very clear. If he has his way, there'll be no Paris Accord. But Winston said to me, Shane, we abide by the coalition agreement, and when we get ready for the next election, then we bring fresh ideas, and that's fair enough. We have to show fidelity to our coalition agreement.
Yeah, and Winston's always been like that. Winston's traded his loyalty is when people are disloyal to him is when he goes off the reservoir. So I agree with that. You're going to campaign against Paris, aren't you, next election?
That's only a small fraction about what we're campaigning against.
I'll leave it there, Shane. Kia ora, bro. Appreciate your time.
Duncan,
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, time for it's strong stuff, isn't it? James, he's colourful with this language, isn't he? Do you understand half of it? Lead us to the editor. Isaac, welcome back on camera. Nice to see you, mate.
G'day, mate. Yeah, good to see you too.
Yeah, I thought you might have just had a really bad pimple. See, that's why you had the thing turned off.
Yeah, I know that was it. You know, messed up my shave a couple of days ago and just had to take a couple of days to replenish.
Okay, you're right. It says letters. You want to have a go at some of these ones? You want to start?
Yeah, mean sweet. So there's some comments from yesterday's episode about the school and lunches.
Yep.
Lunches and schools. What am I talking about? This is a comment. Seymour and ACT were against school lunches when Labor started the scheme, but the dominant coalition partner wanted it. No more school lunches except in exceptional needs.
Yeah, that's fair. This one says, no one fed my child a free lunch when I could have needed it. Yeah, well, yep. Get rid of free lunches. There will always be fussy kids where food is involved, so get rid of them. But bring back tuck shops, but at a discounted price instead of scrap it all together. We've got tuck shops, haven't we? Were you a tuck shop boy?
Within my school, within high school, yes, we had a little canteen.
Canteen.
Not a primary school, definitely not. I think at primary school you had the option. Like, your parents had the option to buy you a lunch, I'm pretty sure.
Right, you ordered at the start of the day. Yeah.
Yeah. But, then when we got to high school, we had a canteen, which primarily when I was in junior, 9 and 10, back in 2017. How does that make you feel, Duncan?
I ain't a grandfather.
It was primarily just like, you get your lollies, maybe your hot chips, your fizzy drink or something like that. It wasn't very substantial. It was yummy but not substantial. And then we had this group come into our school and they revamped our whole canteen and they filled it full of like actual lunch foods that were more healthy, but they very quickly became kind of like $10 meals. And they also weren't very nice.
Maybe it was the start of the rot then. The rot started with I mean, we had donuts, custard squares, and pies and cans of Coke. This will make you feel really young. That was in 1987, 88, 89. There we go.
Jeez, Duncan.
Yeah, I know. I can't. Can you believe how young I look? You read the other one. I haven't got the last one there.
I'm a nurse working in schools. School staff know who the kids are who need breakfast and lunch. Most low decile schools feed these kids anyway and have done forever. These kids are not singled out. They come over to the office to collect their lunch. No fuss. It could have been dropped off by their parents. For all the others know. If you have to feed kids at school, then just the ones nominated by the school. Full stop.
Yeah, that's gone. We've something's going to change. We talked about that yesterday, and that's available as a podcast. Just have a look. Wherever you get your podcast, it's all there. We talked about this one yesterday.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, thank you, sir. And that's us. Thanks for your feedback and your support. I'm not a climate change denier. No, I'm not. I've seen the science and accept that, things are changing. But I also believe we need to be pragmatic and not bankrupt ourselves on the way through to this nirvana. We need to get real and be serious and look at science and look at what we can do to stay up with those technology and to beat this stuff and to try and get on top of it. But the last thing we need to do is write out massive checks as Jane says, to the Congo. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Get in touch through our social media at Duncan Garner Podcast on TikTok and Instagram. Flick us an email, duncan@rover.nz. We love getting your feedback there. To my team, Isaac, nice to see you, brother. We'll do this again tomorrow. Remember, life is no dress rehearsal, no curtain raiser. This is it. We live in one of the best places on earth. So get out and enjoy it. We've still got daylight saving for a couple of weeks. And have a great rest of the day. Take care, New Zealand. Ta-da.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.